And I'm going to talk about the two reasons why I think 15-minute appointments need to exit your life. And one of them is about the visits are the treatment, right? I think the visits are the treatment. Your interaction with the patient is part of the care. It's not about the thing you do in the unit of time, which we'll talk about things per unit of time in a second. It's not about the thing you do per unit of time that is the treatment. The weighing them isn't the treatment. The talking about their ferritin isn't the treatment. Even the prescription renewal is not the treatment. The work we do with patients is about behavior change, about long-term health strategy. The visit is the treatment. And when you've made something 15 minutes or you've tried to make it as cheap as humanly possible so that we're now accommodating what your patient thinks they want, even though that's not what they asked for when they came because they were asking for more time, right? They were asking for something and now we're not even giving it to them. The visit is the treatment. And so when you start to make the visit smaller, we're in effect making the treatment less effective, right? And when we look in research around the methodology behind exercise or nutrition change or behavior change or burnout or whatever it is, right? Think of any chronic disease. The more we have provider time, the more education and question asking and provider time and support and strategy and personalization, the more we add those elements to any treatment plan for any chronic disease, the outcomes are better. So if you are making your appointments shorter, you are in effect saying, we're going to do this at half dose, right? Like imagine that, right? Imagine if we're like, okay, well, the actual effective dose of fish oil is 1 gram, but I'm only going to give you 500 milligrams. You wouldn't do that, right? You would say, well, the full dose is what we need to have the effect. And so if we know the amount of time you need to spend with your patient to have change and you are shortening it for some reason, you are effectively having or maybe even quartering the dose of the treatment and expecting to have the same result, right? That's not a thing. That can't be true. So from a principle perspective and from a methodology, like the way you run your practice perspective, from a values side of things, 15-minute appointments can't be true, right? Because you're having the dose of the treatment, which is the visit. You are doing something fast that cannot be done fast. And you are restricting your patient from something they asked for in not so many words. You ask them to list the top 10 reasons why they're considering naturopathic care. Every single thing they list comes down to provider time. And so you are restricting the thing they asked for if you make your appointment 15 minutes. Okay, so that's on the values side. Now let me convince you from a business side. Okay, if you can't solemnly swear, just based on values alone, let's solemnly swear we're never doing 15-minute appointments again from a business side of things. So when we look at an appointment block in a calendar, certain things have happened in order for that appointment to have taken place, right? So, there is this slot, your patient lives in a slot, right, in your calendar. Even if you run like a membership style practice or a concierge style practice, things have happened to get that person into your calendar. You attracted them to the office. They interacted at some level to book that appointment, maybe with a human, right? Maybe not with a human, but in some way they interacted. There was some level of interface for that person to get into your calendar. Certainly it's more expensive if a human puts them there, right? But in some way, shape, or form, they got there. Maybe you did a discovery call to get them there, right? Maybe not for a 15-minute appointment, but probably for their first appointment, you did a discovery call. So you donated 15 minutes of your time to get them into your calendar. Things have happened for them to exist in the calendar. There were forms that had to be sent, right? Especially for a first visit. Now, when we think about a follow-up visit, the same stuff had to happen, right? Something happened to get them in your calendar. They talked to someone or they interfaced with your EMR in your calendar. There were forms, right? They've probably done some stuff. There's a chart that you have to review. So the things that have to happen prior to the appointment is fixed, right? Like remember, I just said a slot in the calendar. I didn't say how long that slot was. Whether the appointment is 15 minutes or an hour and a half, the same activities happened to get them there. right? The same acquisition cost, whether they're a new person or not a new person, I'm grouping all of those tasks in as part of the acquisition cost of that particular appointment. Forms, people, technology, discovery calls, you reviewing stuff, right? There is a process of stuff that must happen in order for that time slot to exist in your calendar. You did stuff. Your whole business did stuff to make that appointment happen. Now, whether that appointment is 15 minutes or 90 minutes, the same stuff happened. There are fixed activities that must happen per appointment block. And it does not matter how long the appointment block is, the activities stay the same. The activities stay the same, right? And then if we think at the end of the appointment block, right? So ignoring the stuff that happens in the middle of the appointment, at the end of the appointment block, there are fixed activities that must happen for that appointment block to be over. You finish the chart. You send a prescription. You, do a requisition. Your staff checks them out. You click billing. You schedule the next appointment. There are fixed activities that happen at the end of the appointment. Again, I never said if the appointment's 15 minutes or if the appointment's 90 minutes. It doesn't matter. What this means is that we have a fixed expense, essentially, for each appointment block in your calendar. There are pre-activities, there are post-activities. And what people tend to think about is the during activities. Well, the weigh-in just took a second, right? The ferritin just took a second. But forgetting that in order to create that 15-minute appointment, there was a fixed number of activities that happened in your business. And to close that appointment, there are a fixed number of activities that happen to close the appointment. How on earth can you bill enough for a 15-minute appointment to accommodate for all of those things? You can't. You would have to prorate the amount. It could not be, sorry, I used the wrong word there. It can't be prorated off of your hourly rate, because the cost to your business is exactly the same, whether they're there for 90 minutes or there for 15. You see what I'm saying? So if someone commits to an hour and 15-minute block in your appointment and they pay off your hourly rate, whatever that is, right? You are accommodating probably for all of the activities that it took for them to get in your calendar. I mean, maybe you're not, and that's totally a topic for another day. But the longer they're there, the easier it is to buffer the cost of some of those activities it took for them to live in your calendar. Now, if we take an hour time slot and one person has paid for that whole block, but you do pre-activities once and post-activities once. Contrast that with if we put 4 15-minute appointments into your calendar. Now you're doing 4 times the amount of pre-work and 4 times the amount of post-work for all of those appointments for the same amount of money. And very difficult for you to charge 4 times the appointment block. They might as well have a longer appointment. You see where I'm going with this? If you charge 4 times the amount of those tasks in order for it all to be accommodated for, now you can see why we shouldn't have 15-minute appointments, because we can't. You can't. You can't put them in there because the work is the same. And I would say this to patients. Look, I have the same amount of paperwork to do, whether you're here for 30 minutes or 15. So why don't we do a 15-minute appointment 30-minute appointment? If you want to leave halfway through, that's fine, right? If you only want to stay for 15 minutes, or if we're wrapping up at the 20-minute mark and you feel all done and you want to go, amazing. But my work is the same. So we're going to block it for 30 minutes. We're going to block it for the amount of time that actually is what my work is associated with this appointment. If you only want to stay for 15 minutes, amazing, right? That's fine, right? I get to eat my lunch while I finish my chart. So hopefully you can see why we have to solemnly swear that this is actually something that is not sustainable in our businesses, nor is it actually projecting the values that you want to project with your business, right? It's impossible for you to meet the goals of the patient and cut the corner on time. It's impossible for you to meet the goals that they've asked for and do it in a shorter amount of time, right? It's better for your patient to wait until they can afford the longer appointment. And that's not the way they've typically consumed healthcare, right? It's like, well, I'll get in either way. And if I only talk to the specialist for half a minute, I guess I'll be okay with that. It is better for your patient to wait until they can do the longer appointment, whether it's their schedule or the cost. That's the barrier. And for you, I want you to think about your fixed activities that happen per appointment block because you've probably never thought about your schedule that way. If you see 4 people in a day for hour-and-a-half appointments, think of the low volume of paperwork, low volume of staff time, low volume of activities that have to happen to make that day run, and contrast that with a day full of 15-minute appointments. It's very difficult for you to charge enough for you to accommodate 15-minute appointments in your day because the work doesn't change and the product is at the half dose that they require to actually see change in their health.